My son has really been into the Zelda video games lately, so I decided to make him this color-changing nightlight using a piece of acrylic and an ATtiny microcontroller and the Arduino software. For this display, I purchased a 5" by 7" by ½ piece of acrylic. I printed the pattern on these shipping labels so that I could stick them directly onto the acrylic on both sides. These sheets will not only show me where to cut, but will protect the surface from any scratches. After cutting out the piece, I used a little glue gun to help get the sticker residual off the plexiglass. Any area that you want to light up will have to be etched. I'm going to be doing that using 220 grit sandpaper, which I'm going to first get wet and very lightly agitate these areas that are not protected by the sticker. So once again, the objective is to just lightly abrade the surface where you want the light to shine through. Let me show you a little demonstration here. Wherever we sanded, the light will illuminate the piece. In order to house the electronics and hold up the piece of plexiglass, I'm going to attempt to build a frame using this oak wood. I've got my pattern drawn out here, and as you can see, I'm going to use the stickers again to help me cut the pieces. So the piece of plexiglass will fit inside this box once it's fully assembled and be illuminated from below, and so all of our electronics will have to fit inside. As you can see, we don't have a lot of space. We need to fit a proto board. We're going to need 3 MOSFETs. These are 2N 7000 MOSFETs. We're going to need some 10 kilo ohm resistors. We're going to need a plug for the power. And of course, we're going to need some light. So this is a 5-volt LED strip. And we will cut a piece to the right length. And as you can see here, we really don't have enough room to fit a full-size Arduino, and even an Arduino Nano would be pretty tight in here because we only have this ½ of space. So instead of using those, I will be using an ATtiny microcontroller, which is much smaller than the Arduino. And even using the ATtiny, we're still going to need a little more space in there, so I'm going to carve out some of this board on the inside. So here's what it looks like with the 2 halves routed out to fit the electronics. On this side, I glued a small piece of wood to hold the LED strips. And next thing to do is glue the whole thing together. Next, I'll round all the edges on the router table. I just finished sanding it with 100, 150, and 220 grit sandpaper. And next I will be pre-staining it and then applying the color. With the base sanded and stained, it's time to start installing the electronic components. Now you'll want to do as much of the soldering in advance as you can, because once we start installing things, it'll get a little tight on space. You'll notice on the LED strip that I broke off the blue wire tab on this side, so I simply ended up soldering to the other side. Both the ATtiny and the LED strip will be powered by a single 5-volt supply. The entire system will only take about 1/3 of an amp, and each color of the LED strip will be driven by a MOSFET that will be connected to one of the digital out pins on the ATtiny. So here's the board all soldered up. I definitely recommend getting a socket for your ATtiny. That way you can make a test code and change it as you need to. For example, I'm starting out by changing colors every 1 second, but the final version will change every 60 seconds. Let's turn the lights out and test this out. Looking pretty good. Looks like I left the opening just big enough to fit the board in, and I've got this sticker back felt which will help it from scratching the furniture. Let me show you the Arduino code I used to program the ATtiny, then we'll take it up to my son's room and plug it in. I ended up using pins 0, 1, and 4 on the ATtiny, and had I used my brain I would have used 0, 1, and 2, which would have made the code a little bit simpler. Because I used 0, 1, and 4, I ended up putting those pin numbers into an array so that I could sequence them later down here in the loop. Down here in the loop, the ATtiny will cycle the LED strip through 6 different colors, 3 primary colors and 3 secondary colors. First, create a primary color by holding 2 of the pins low and 1 high and hold it there for 1 minute. You'll create a secondary color by adding a second pin high and waiting another minute. We'll cycle through 3 different sequences to create all 6 colors. If you've never programmed an ATtiny before, I highly recommend this video, which will show you exactly how to program it using the Arduino IDE. I'm using Arduino version 1.6, which includes here in the examples the Arduino ISP program, and this is the program that you use to program the Arduino to program the ATtinys. Once your Arduino has been programmed and connected to the ATtiny, go into Tools, make sure that the ATtiny85 is selected, and make sure you have the right processor selected, and select which clock speed you want to use. Now if you change this clock speed, you will need to run this burn bootloader program first, but once you do that, you can simply upload using the programmer. And here we have it in my son's room. His alarm clock had a 5-volt USB jack on the back, so I'm just plugging into there, and he can enjoy this at night.